Gardeners who bury one ripped, soaked cardboard box under a new bed this weekend can starve weeds before they sprout, because no-dig growers and soil trials prove weed seeds obey light, not wishful thinking, turning a chemical-sprayed jungle into a near-zero weed garden for up to 5 years without paying the herbicide aisle another $1. And if that sounds too simple, good. That is exactly where the trap has been hiding. You know the pain. You step into the garden on a hot morning with a bucket, a hand fork, and the fake optimism of a person who thinks this time will be different. 10 minutes later, your lower back is tight, sweat is running into your eyes, and every weed you pull snaps right at the root like it is laughing underground. The soil smells dry and angry. Your fingertips are black, your knees are packed with grit. You clear one row, turn around, and there are already tiny green blades coming up in the place you swore you just finished. So you do what the system trained you to do. You buy spray. You buy weed fabric. You buy a roll of plastic that promises control, then frays into black hairs by next season. You rent a tiller, and for one glorious afternoon the bed looks perfect, fluffy, brown, clean, obedient. Then the betrayal begins. Pigweed, crabgrass, chickweed, lamb's quarters, Bermuda, bindweed, 1,000 little soldiers rising from the grave you just opened. The impossible goal today is not fewer weeds. That is the weak promise they sell tired people. The goal is a 5-year weed blackout system, a way to suffocate the old weed layer, block the light triggers, protect the soil surface, feed worms and fungi, and stop waking the buried seed bank every time you garden. The ripped cardboard box is not trash. It is the cheap, brown door between two worlds. Above it, food crops. Below it, a starving weed army trapped in darkness. The villain is not just weeds. The villain is the business model built around your exhaustion. The herbicide aisle needs weeds to return. The rototiller industry needs you to believe disturbed soil is healthy soil. The plastic weed fabric rack needs you to forget that soil is alive and must breathe. Every spring, the same ritual repeats. Kill, scrape, till, spray, cover, uncover, repeat. They sell you a war that cannot end, because the method itself creates the next battle. Here is the part they do not put on the label. Many weed seeds are buried in the soil like tiny time bombs. Some can wait for years. They do not all sprout at once. They wait for disturbance, light, oxygen, warmth, and chemical signals from freshly exposed soil. When you till, you drag sleeping seeds to the surface. When you leave bare dirt, sunlight tells them the canopy is gone and the battlefield is open. When you water bare soil, you do not just water your tomatoes. You water the enemy. Then Ruth Stout walked into the story like a woman who had simply had enough. In the 1940s and 50s, when serious gardeners were supposed to plow, cultivate, hoe, spray, and suffer, Ruth looked at the whole performance and refused. She was not trying to sound revolutionary. She was trying to stop wasting her life. Instead of polishing the soil into a neat exposed wound, she covered it deeply with hay and organic matter. Experts rolled their eyes. Neighbors thought it looked messy. The respectable garden world believed clean soil meant controlled soil. But Ruth understood something brutal and obvious. Nature hates bare ground. Bare soil is an emergency signal. In a forest, the ground is covered with leaves, dead stems, bark, fallen branches, and decay. In a meadow, grass shields the earth. The only place nature leaves soil naked is after violence, fire, flood, landslide, plow. And what arrives first after violence? Weeds. Weeds are not proof your garden is cursed. Weeds are nature's bandage over your exposed mistake. Ruth Stout's victory was not that hay was magic. Her victory was that she stopped playing the enemy's game. She denied weeds light. She stopped disturbing buried seeds. She let worms do the tilling in silence. She turned waste into armor. And that is the same forbidden principle hidden inside a ripped cardboard box. The modern world tried to make this knowledge look primitive, because primitive solutions are bad customers. A gardener who understands soil cover buys less. A gardener who knows how weed seeds wake up is harder to scare. A gardener who sees cardboard as a biological tool does not panic every time the garden aisle invents a new bottle with the word control on it. So here is the paradigm shift. Weeds are not just plants you hate. They are sensors. They are reading your mistakes. Bare soil tells them, come now. Tilling tells them, the prison has opened. Thin mulch tells them there is a crack in the roof. Your job is not to chase every weed after it becomes visible. Your job is to make the conditions so hostile that most of them never get the invitation. Cardboard works because it is a blackout curtain, a moisture sponge, a worm buffet, and a temporary soil scaffold all at once. It blocks light, which shuts down the germination signal for many surface weed seeds. It smothers existing low weeds by cutting off photosynthesis, which is plant electricity made from sunlight. It softens under moisture, so worms can chew it and drag pieces down. And unlike plastic fabric, cardboard eventually disappears into the soil food web instead of breaking into ugly little synthetic threads. But the method only works if you build it like a weapon, not like a lazy dump. Start with the box. You want plain brown corrugated cardboard. Corrugated means it has that wavy middle layer, like tiny tunnels between two flat sheets. Those tunnels matter. They hold air and moisture. They give fungi and worms little corridors to invade. Remove every piece of tape, every plastic label, every staple, every glossy sticker. Do not use wax-coated produce boxes. Do not use shiny printed cardboard with heavy colored ink. Do not use greasy pizza boxes under vegetable beds, because oil can repel water and attract the wrong kind of mess. Plain, boring brown cardboard is the gold. Now rip it open. Do not shred it into confetti. That is rookie sabotage. Tiny pieces leave tiny gaps, and weeds are professional gap finders. Rip the box into wide panels. Flatten the panels. If there are thick folds, tear them so they lie close to the soil. The goal is continuous coverage, like armor plates on a tank. Every seam is a possible escape hatch, so overlap seams by at least 6 inches. If you are dealing with aggressive grasses like Bermuda, quackgrass, or bindweed, overlap 8 to 12 inches and consider a double layer. Those plants do not negotiate. They crawl, spear, and hunt for light. Before the cardboard touches the ground, scalp the area. Mow or cut weeds as low as possible. Do not yank everything and churn the soil unless you must remove woody crowns or massive roots. Leave the green clippings where they fall if they have not gone to seed. That green material becomes nitrogen-rich food under the cardboard. Think of nitrogen as the protein in the microbial meal. Cardboard is high carbon, like dry bread. Microbes can eat it, but they work better when there is a little protein nearby. Add a dusting of finished compost, grass clippings, aged manure, or worm castings over the soil before laying cardboard. Not a mountain, just a biological appetizer. Now water the ground deeply. This is the step impatient people skip, and then they blame the method. Dry soil under dry cardboard is a locked vault. You want damp soil, damp weeds, damp cardboard, and active microbes. Soak the ground until it smells alive. Then lay your cardboard panels directly on top of the soil and weed stubble. This is what "bury it under the garden" really means. Do not bury cardboard 12 inches deep in a wet clay grave. Place it at the boundary where weeds want light and roots want structure, on top of the old soil, under the new growing layer. Wet each panel as you place it. Press it down so it hugs the soil. Cardboard that floats above lumps creates little air tents where weeds can survive. Cardboard that lies flat becomes a coffin lid. Once the cardboard armor is down, lock it in place with the living stack. Spread 2 to 3 inches of compost or good topsoil over the cardboard if you want to plant immediately. This is the root zone for young plants while the cardboard softens below. Then cover that with 3 to 5 inches of mulch, shredded leaves, straw, aged wood chips, pine needles, or a blend of whatever clean organic matter your region gives you cheaply. Compost is the nursery. Mulch is the roof. Cardboard is the blackout basement. Together, they turn a weed patch into a controlled ecosystem. For transplants, cut a small X through the cardboard where each plant will go. Pull the flaps back, dig only enough to place the root ball into the soil below. Mix a handful of compost into that pocket, set the plant at the proper depth, then fold the cardboard flaps close around the stem without choking it. Leave a little breathing space around tender stems. For tomatoes, you can plant deeper. For peppers, basil, cucumbers, squash, and most flowers, keep the crown near the original soil line. Then pull mulch around the area, but not piled against the stem like a wet collar. For seeds, do not sprinkle tiny seeds on top of mulch and expect miracles. Make a narrow furrow in the compost layer above the cardboard, fill it with fine compost or seed starting mix, Sow into that strip and keep it moist. Lettuce, radish, beans, peas, and many flowers can grow beautifully in these prepared lanes. For root crops like carrots and parsnips, create deeper compost channels or wait until the cardboard has softened, because long straight roots hate obstacles. Around trees, shrubs, and perennials, use the donut rule. Cardboard and mulch should never be jammed against trunks or crowns. Leave several inches of open breathing space. Wet mulch pressed to bark invites rot and pests. And keep cardboard-heavy beds away from wooden siding or foundations in termite-prone areas. This is a garden tool, not an invitation to feed insects beside your house. Now the 5-year secret. The cardboard itself will not stay intact for 5 years. That is not the point. If it did, it would be plastic, wearing a brown costume. The first year, cardboard smothers existing weeds and blocks seed germination. As it breaks down, the compost and mulch above create a soft, fungal, covered soil surface. If you do not till, you stop dragging new weed seeds up from below. If you top up mulch once or twice a year, you keep the light barrier alive. The 5-year effect comes from a system, not a single sheet. Cardboard is the coup. Mulch is the occupation. The science is simple and savage. Plants need sunlight to make sugar. Cut off light long enough, and most green weeds burn through their stored energy and die. Seeds near the surface often use light as a trigger, because light means open space. Cardboard lies to them. It says, "No opening here." Worms then shred the damp cardboard. Fungi thread through it. Bacteria break cellulose into smaller pieces. Cellulose is just plant fiber, like a rope made of sugar. Microbes chew the rope, build their bodies, die, and become soil glue. That glue helps soil clump into crumbs that hold water and air. Better crumbs mean fewer crusts, less runoff, deeper roots, and fewer weed-friendly cracks. Now prove it like a scientist with dirt under your nails. Mark one untreated control patch, even 2 feet by 2 feet. Build your cardboard bed beside it. Count weeds every week in both areas. Write down weeds per square foot, minutes spent weeding, and how many times you water. After rain, push your finger into both soils. The cardboard mulch bed should feel cooler, darker, and more evenly damp. After 2 months, lift a small corner at the edge. You want to see softened cardboard, white fungal threads, worm trails, crumbly soil, and dead pale weed stems. That is not decay. That is conquest. If weeds erupt through seams, your overlap was too small. If plants yellow, add compost or a mild organic nitrogen source, because microbes may be borrowing nitrogen while digesting carbon. If it smells sour and swampy, the layer is too wet or too thick for that soil. Pull back mulch, let air in, and correct the system. Failure is not humiliation. Failure is intelligence arriving through evidence. This is bigger than cardboard. Every ripped box you bury is a refusal to keep buying defeat. It is proof that the waste stream can become fertility, that laziness can become strategy, and that the quietest rebellion in the world is a garden that no longer begs the chemical aisle for permission to grow. Subscribe, because every box you bury is one less invoice from the system.